I'm Dr. Venkateshwaran, and I'll be discussing with you something related to writing poetry. DCE 5, course number 5. And I'll be dealing with block 1 and block 2. Block 1 deals with themes in poetry, and block 2 deals with structure in poetry. And I welcome you all. I'd like to begin my session by defining poetry. There are many definitions of the term poetry. One of the definitions available to us is that poetry is best words in best order. Best words in the best order. That's one of the definitions. Another definition is it's a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility. I repeat, it's a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility. Well, every word there, spontaneous. It is not just, it comes, it flows. Okay. You look at an object, and then some thoughts come to you, and then you start pouring it out. There's some kind of stimulus which works in you. Maybe the object that you see or the thing that you see before you is the external stimulus. But within me, even without any external stimulus, I may be responding to what I had experienced earlier or what I had experienced a few days ago. And then I start writing. I connect myself with that experience. I relate myself to that experience. When I do so, I am in the process of expressing the feelings and emotions that are attached to it when I get myself related to. That's why I said spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility. All the words there are equally important. Tranquility, when you are alone. An atmosphere where you are alone. Not necessary that you have to be in a group. And it's an activity which is the result of recollection. Means recollecting or thinking about the past. Something related to the past. So as and when I see something, I cannot write poetry. That may be different from the language of poetry. If I write, I have a flag here, I'll simply say, I see a flag here, etc., 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 etc. But then, the language of poetry is different. And poetry itself is a recollecting activity. Recollecting activity. I recollect. Okay. There's yet another definition which I have shown there. Expression of imagination. I can imagine even those things which I have not seen at all. I can imagine. I can imagine an experience which I have not experienced at all. So, expression of imagination. The first definition, best words in best order, has something to do with the word choice. Word choice when you write poetry. And the order, placement of every word in an utterance, in a sentence, in a line, in any writing. Best words in best order. So I have to be doubly, I'll be very consciously looking for words which actually define what is what. I look for words here and there. And it is again imagination. I'm not going to have a thesaurus or a dictionary before me and just look at every word. Sometimes the words, I look for words. Words will be in the dictionary, no doubt about it. But I'm not constantly referring to the dictionary or thesaurus for doing the activity of writing poetry. And I like to be choosy. I like to be very choosy in writing poetry and in writing words or using words. Very choosy. That's why it is said best words in best order. And spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility. Poetry is writing poetry is a combination of activities of reason. Poetry is a combination of activities of reason and imagination, means something which is very clear to me. And imagination need not be bound on reason. Reason means some kind of cause. Okay. It is a combination or amalgamation of an activity of reasoning and imagining. Okay. And when we talk about language of poetry, the language of poetry, particularly in order and structure, is always deviant. And when I write poetry, or when somebody is involved in the act of writing or act of composing poetic lines or verse, V-E-R-S-E, I use some words which have different shades of meaning, which actually add to, which add to the meaning, the content, the purpose, everything in that poetry. That poetry may be having a comparison, maybe having a word which has the attribute of any human aspect. A non-human thing may be given a human attribute. A non-human, not inhuman, a non-human object or anything for that matter may be given a human attribute, and that is done by some kind of what we call poetic devices. Again, words only. Poetic devices are what? Sometimes even what we call a mark of punctuation. A mark of punctuation may convey a different meaning. So, the language of poetry, which is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility, is deviant in order, deviant in structure, and the language of poetry has the tendency to use certain words which have more power, which are strong enough to convey what you want to convey. But those words, they don't have just one meaning, they may have plenty of meanings. They may have infinite number of meanings. And language of poetry is different from the language of prose. You may be wondering why I say all this. Unless I know what is poetry, unless I know what poetry means to me particularly. These are all definitions given by many people. But what is poetry to you? Right? And to convey any piece of activity is communicating some kind of an activity, communicating a message, communicating a thought, or sharing of experiences. Any writing activity, leave alone poetry. Any writing activity is an activity that that is focused on conveying some meaning, conveying a message, or sharing an experience. And if I'm going to do it in, like the normal everyday conversational English, it may sound like prose. And the words that I use, the structure that I'm going to make use of, and the order in which I'm going to place the words that I have chosen, that differentiates the format or the form of poetry and form of prose. So having defined poetry, I have to look for that kind of a language which conveys the meaning, not necessarily directly. It may convey the meaning implicitly and explicitly as well. Okay? And I use certain poetic devices. Some of you may be familiar with those poetic devices like simile, metaphor, personification, etc. Synecdoche, and so on. Okay, let me put on to the next slide. Having defined what is poetry, I'm going to discuss something about voice in poems or poetry. Poetry is a body of a collection of many poems. And every piece of poem, every poetic piece or every poem has some voice. That voice is called speaking voice, in the sense it may be the poet's voice, or it may be the voice of somebody else that the poet is, or the author or the writer, okay, or the creative writer is doing that. It need not be always the voice, it need not be always reflecting the opinion of the writer. It may be the opinion of someone else. The message in that poem may be the message of someone else, or some other group. So there may be many voices. There may be many voices. It can be one, that is the author's voice. It can be two, or it can be many more and more. And what do you mean by the voice in a poem? The voice in a poem is, okay, the voice in a poem is what we call the mind of the poet. The mind of the poet. The mind of the poet. For example, metaphysical poets is invariably the poet's voice only. In many metaphysical poems, the voice is that of the poet himself. And, well, as given in the example in your book or Unit 1, there's a poem by an Indian writer, Nizam Shikal. Okay, Nizam Shikal. Farewell to a farewell party, something like that. Miss Pushpa is never saying no. Whatever I or anybody is asking, she's always saying yes. And totally she is going to improve her prospects. And we are wishing her bon voyage. Now I asked other speakers to speak, and afterwards Miss Pushpa will do the summing up. See, here is the poem may tend to be having the voice of the poet, rhythmical, but there are many voices there. It is not the voice of the speaker only. Look at that word. She is always saying yes, and today she is going to improve her prospects, and we are wishing her born with it. We, the word we refer to that it is not the poet himself alone. There are some more people. Those people may be known to the poet, where can be imagined. It's available. Okay. Now I ask other people, other speakers to speak. There's no one voice. There are many. Now I ask other speakers to speak, and afterwards Miss Pushpa will do the summing up. Okay. So by voice we refer to the mind. What the poet or what the writer wants to say. It can be a say from the mind, from the conscious level. It can be a say from the unconscious level also. The poet might not have thought about it earlier. The poet might have dreamt. The poet might not have experienced it in reality. The poet might have dreamt. So the voice can be the poet's voice, or it can be the voice of many. Voice, okay, or persons can be through images and symbols. And what's an image? And what's a symbol? An image reflects the meaning. A symbol represents. A symbol stands for some aspect, some meaning. For example, rose. If it is used as a symbol in a poem, it stands for love. It stands for many things. A symbol is different from an image. Okay? Image is the reflection of meaning through a word. Symbol is a word which represents something. So poetry has a speaking voice. It can be one or more. It can be the voice can be that of the poet, or the voice can be the poet himself, or it can be the voice of somebody else getting reflected through the poet, or getting manifested itself in the words of the poet. So this is what you should understand. So voice in the poem is nothing but the mind, the speaking. The mind is speaking. Voice. If you can hear my voice, not just the sound. I'm able to hear your voice in the sense I'm able to understand what you are saying. I'm able to reflect on what you are writing or what you are saying. I am able, you need not be, when I say you need not be the individual. You may be representing somebody else. Somebody else's thought process. Somebody else's, ideas. Somebody else's opinions. So poetry always has a speaking voice. It's a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions. It is best words in best order. It is a combination of reason and imagination. When we think of poetry like this, that it is a combination of reason and imagination. Reasoning means identifying the cause, there's some kind of support. Okay? Imagination need not be supported. But reasoning, I'm trying to reason out means I'm trying to find out the cause. Why this happened? Why did this really happen? Reasoning. Okay. And voice in any poetry can be one or more. Okay. And voice can be fictional. Poetry can be fictional poetry, historic poetry, dramatic, and depersonalization can occur. What do you mean by depersonalization. And what is the difference between image and symbol in your book on in page 7? The authorial voice, the authorial, or the writer's or the creator's voice. Normally we say, oh, this is the poet's idea, not my idea. Sometimes the poet's idea may be different, though in print, in words, on paper, it may appear to be the poet's, but not necessary that it has to be the poet's voice all the time, always. It can be the poet maybe placing himself in the position of someone else and then writing. So authorial voice can be the voice of the author himself, or it can be somebody else's as well. Okay. So what I want to say, I want to say that this class, I want to say only for example, I'm saying this class has only a few students, and I want to say, but I may not be saying it directly. I may be putting it in the mouth of or in the words of someone else, as if they have said, right? What I might have heard or what I might have listened to someone speaking, right? What I have heard as the opinion of the university where you have registered for your diploma in creative writing course. I may say it in a different way, and it need not be always the poet's voice. The poet's voice. It need not be always the poet's voice. Please remember. The poet may be representing somebody else's, and then it becomes the voice of the unknown. Voice of the unknown in print or in words written by the poet. That's all. The poet is only in a catalyst there. The poet simply writes. It need not be his idea. It need not be his opinion. It need not be his thought. He might have just represented, he or she might have represented someone else. And the words reflect that. So reflecting is very important. That's why reflecting on somebody else's opinion. I simply write. I need not be a party to it. I need not be endorsing that. If I write, that doesn't mean I am endorsing, particularly poetry. Not necessary. So it may be the voice of somebody else. That's what we are trying to say. Behind the voices or the personae or people or images or symbols created by the poet. And symbols and images are behind the thoughts expressed by the poet, the opinions expressed by the poet. Right? The ideas conveyed through by the poet. Images and symbols help a poet to voice his opinion or others' opinions. So they are representatives. Okay, and there are many examples given there. As I mounted up the hill, the music in my heart, I go long after it was heard no more. That's highly personal. That's from the poem by William Wordsworth, Solitary Reaper. Are you able to follow me? Hello, friends? Are you able to understand? Follow me. So, voice in poems or poetry is only that much. A poetry, any poem has a speaking voice. That voice can be words, or that voice can be represented by the use of the image or the symbol, or the voice can be the voice of somebody else. Right? That's what we are trying to say. Next one is kinds of poetry. kinds of poetry. Ballad. Ballad means story poem. Ode. Ode is not a descriptive thing wherein I glorify an inanimate object. Ode to clothes, there is a poem. Ode to clothes. Okay? Sometimes ode like a Keatsian ode to Nightingale, ode to Indolence, ode to Skylark, ode to the west wind, ode on a Grecian urn, beauty, truth and truth, beauty, ode on a Grecian urn. The romantic poets have written many odes, particularly Shelley and Keats. They have written, they wrote quite a number of odes. Epic is a very long narrative. It has some kind of a scriptural format. Epics. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata in India is an epic. The Holy Bible is also called an epic. And when it comes to English poetry, Paradise Lost by John Milton. Paradise Lost by John Milton is. And an epic will always have a kind of spiritual meaning, a kind of spiritual thought process, a philosophical one. A lot of things, the Mahabharata in India, the Ramayana in India, and in Greek, Odyssey, Iliad, and things like that. Iliad. Homer's Iliad is an epic. Homer. And in English poetry, written by British poets, British poet by John Milton, Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained is an epic. Both of them are epics. They have the qualities of the epic. A story, a philosophy, something based on the scripture, religious. Lyric, a song or a poem tuned to an instrument called lyre, L-Y-R-E. Elegy is also a kind of poem in which invariably a dead person, an elegy will be invariably a poem on a dead person. Maybe elegy written in a country churchyard. Sounds great. Lycidas by John Milton. Again, an elegy. An elegy is again a poem, but please remember a ballad, an ode, an epic, a lyric, an elegy, all these are different kinds of poetry and they use different styles, different structures, different perhaps different symbols and images and poetic devices. A lyric is more or less like a film song, okay? But don't think a lyric means it's only to be sung or it is only tuned to some music or some notes, yes, but then every lyric has a meaning. Every lyric has a purpose. Every epic has a lesson to give. Every epic forms a different style. Examples are given. Homer's Iliad. Okay. Greek epics are there. Ode is again a poem which actually glorifies sometimes inanimate things or sometimes even animate objects and animate creatures. As I was telling you, ode, romantic poets wrote a number of odes. Like Shelley and Keats, they wrote a number of odes. Whereas an elegy is a poem which is written in honor or in memory of a departed soul, maybe a friend, maybe a very important person in society. Right? Now, what are the types of it? Narrative. Narrative poetry means it will be more or less a story poem. Dramatic, again, one important poet in uh, British literature is Robert Browning's dramatic monologues. It's called dramatic. It has the structure of a drama, beginning as if two people are getting into a debate, or as if two people are getting into a dialogue, as if three or more people are conversing. Right? Dramatic. And it may have a dramatic beginning and dramatic end. Okay? And lyrical. So, my voice gets reflected through the structure of a poem. My voice gets reflected through the images and symbols that I use. My voice gets my voice gets known to people. My voice gets uh, understood by others or communicated well by choosing the right type of poetry, the right kind of poetry, where every kind of poetry follows a different style, form, and structure as befits that kind of poetry. The structure and the word that we use in the ballad may be different from the structure of an ode or a dramatic poem structure. A dramatic poem may begin just with the cornucopia. Okay. Right. An example is given there. Behold a single in the field. Here, the author's voice is present. Right? Change the persona in this poem to the reaper herself and rewrite the poem. How will you? The reaper would have, behold, I see myself alone in the field, reaping and singing myself. I should stop or gently pass. Alone I cut and bind the grain. Alone I sing a melancholy strain. Oh, listen to the wail which flows with my song, with my voice. So, when you are going to change the voice into a singular or the voice into an individual persona or personae, okay, personality, then subject changes, okay, words change, meaning doesn't change at all. But I speak, I write as if I'm speaking. So I can change the voice in a poem to the voice of another individual, as it is given here in your book, page 9, unit 1. There's a poem again given by Emily Dickinson, The Bustle in the House. The morning after death, a solemnist of industries enacted upon earth. The sweeping up the heart and putting love away, we shall not want to use again until eternity. Until eternity. I repeat, this is not the voice of the poet herself. It's not just the voice. The poet is trying to universalize the voice. See, look at that. The bustle in the house, the morning after death, is solemnest of industries enacted upon earth. The sweeping up the heart and putting love away, we shall not want. We is not singular, it is plural, therefore there are many voices. Okay? And they try to. It is her personal experience on seeing a dead body or witnessing some death. But she is actually universalizing her experience. She is actually putting it as an experience by many. We shall not want to use again until eternity. The poet universalizes her personal experience. We shall know. So long. So there are many such things there. Then every poem has a speaking voice, voices through which the poet communicates with the reader. Behind the voice, there are what we call the personae created by the poet. The persona can be the poet himself, or a historical or a fictional character, okay, which he employs. The persona can be given a symbolic value. The persona can help a poet to depersonalize experience. So this is what we have to understand by personalization or depersonalization. Right? And I also discussed the different kinds of poetry, ballad, ode, and etc. 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 Okay. Nature poetry. Poets always, many poets have dealt with in their poems something about nature, natural surroundings, about lakes, about birds, about animals, about the green grass. A nature poem, a nature poem has the following characteristics. I have not put it there. A nature poem always must be able to be related to emotions, human emotions. And a nature poem will be always written in simple language, simple language. A nature poem will be using different poetic devices such as similes and metaphors taken from the world of nature. And the experiences given there are felt experiences. Felt experience, very important point. In a nature poem, the experiences or the felt experiences by the writer or the poet himself or herself. Very important. That's how a nature poem differs from other kinds of poems. A nature poem will be arousing or appealing to your emotions and feelings. And most of the romantic poets, again, I must say, in their odes, in their poems, they were actually experiencing and making people experience the emotional quality attached to that. They actually appeal to the emotions of the reader. There are many poems, many poems. Upon Westminster Bridge by William Wordsworth again. Upon Westminster Bridge. The world is too much with us. He who doesn't get up and see the early morning sunrise, he must be a pagan. He doesn't know how to enjoy the nature. The nature poems do have what we call a hind form or a hind order in the form of nature and its beauty. nature and its serene, and nature and its serenity. I can't say. There'll be always something aesthetic about nature poets. That means something aesthetic about nature poets. Anything that has an aesthetic quality or anything that appeals to your aesthetics means that thing is appealing to your emotions, is able to arouse your emotions and feelings. Beauty, truth and truth, beauty. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Look at these two lines. Oral aggression and again. I'll be always giving this example. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Just two lines. We really do not know. How can you, some people will be asking, how can we say unheard melodies are sweeter, which we have not even experienced? And that's where the poets, like nature poets, appeal to emotion. So you tend to think something unheard voices. We are talking about unsung heroes. Unsung heroes in any battle or any war. Unsung heroes are there. That means they are not known. Like that, unheard melodies are there. Those unheard melodies will be sweeter than the heard melodies, which is real. Heard one is real, unheard is imagined. Heard one is real, and therefore it's a result of reasoning. Unheard one is the result of imagination. Now go back to the definition of poetry. Poetry is a combination of reason and imagination. Heard melodies are sweet, it's reason. I'm able to hear you sing, your voice is good, your tone is excellent, your, your words are good. But I am trying to imagine somebody who has not been listened to, or some lines which have not been heard at all, or which have not been heard at all, which have not been read, which have not been listened to, and I simply say, oh, that should be sweeter there. That should be sweeter. That is the comparison. Heard melody is sweet, but those unheard sweeter. These two lines are a result of reasoning and imagination. It's a result, amalgamation of the real and the, I can't call it unreal, the real and not this, and the unseen. Unseen. The unseen may become seen, maybe tomorrow or a little later. What is past may become the present, or what I see and what I have not been able to experience may become an experiential thought for me tomorrow. But now it is always an amalgamation, is always a combination of the real and the not seen, unseen. And unseen is nothing but imagination. Is a product of imagination. The unseen is a product of imagination, and the seen is the real. Therefore, poetry is defined as a combination of both reason and what is real can be reasoned out. But what is not said is only the product of imagination. Very important point, that a good definition for poetry. So, nature, poetry. Let me go to the next. So, elements of poetry. Every poem has a voice, we said, authorial voice. It can be one or it can be many. Every poem will be a product or will be a fictional account. Fictional account. Every poem will be using one figure of speech or another. The common figures of speech include simile, that is comparison, metaphor, which is hidden comparison, okay, personification, giving a human attribute to non-human, not inhuman, non-human things. The sun is always addressed as he. In a poem by Shirley, not Shelley, Shirley, Death the Leveler. The poem is titled Death the Leveler. There, the poet writes, Death lays his icy hands. Death lays his icy hands. Death is addressed as a male, his. Death, okay, a concept, a happening. That is real, of course, but death cannot be experienced in life. Death is portrayed. Death is actually said as or addressed as an individual, as a human individual. Death lays his icy hands on all. So, death a concept, death an idea, death a construct. Okay, I'm not talking that death is unreal. Death is inevitable. But death is not addressed as he. So there are many concepts, there are many ideas, there are many such things which may be given the attribute of a human being by using his or her or something like that, and then that figure of speech is called personification. Okay. And metaphor is a Shylock. It's like a Shylock. Simile and metaphor, the difference is only that a simile will be using expressions or words which compare, which are used to compare. Okay? Which are used to compare. As with us. Like summer tempest came her tears. Like summer tempest came her tears. Like words like okay, as. There are many such examples you can give. So figures of speech. No, synecdoche. Synecdoche is what we call to represent the whole. I may be using the off of it. The world is too much with us. Okay. So the point is, poetry includes voice. Poetry includes an idea, which can be fictional. Poetry includes different figures of speech used to convey some message and idea. And the figures, imagery will be there, rhythm will be there, structure will be there. Every poem has a structure. An epic has its own structure. A ballad has its own structure. A lyric has its structure. Rhythm, you know how the beats are arranged, how the words are arranged in relation to the sounds they produce, in relation to the syllables which have the quality to get, which have the need to be accented at the rhythm. Right? So, again, in your book, I must say that nature poetry, I'm sorry I have not been able to put that there. Nature poetry symbolizes, nature symbolizes permanence and tranquility. Uh, well, I don't know whether you have read that poem, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening. Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Again, it's a kind of nature poem, but reflective. Okay? So, you look at that. Again, in your book, there's a poem given by Byron. Gentlemen, I want you to go through some of the in this notes or in this study materials. They have given you some poems written by British writers and some by Indian writers. Okay, I request all of you, whoever is there, to go through some of the poems written by African poets, Caribbean poets, or Nigerian poets like Ule Soyinka, many African poets, or African American poets, right? Uh, there are many women poets also, so you must go through it. Unfortunately, the examples are not here from African poetry. So you can go through some of the poems written by African writers within Africa, South African writers, Nigerian writers, Caribbean writers, African American writers. You'll be able to see what is it that they are trying to deal with. And every poem, excepting nature poets, every poem will have a lesson or a message or a thought or idea to be conveyed or something. It may be an answer to a question which is actually getting pervaded in the society. Okay? So when it comes to here, example is given that roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean. Roll. 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in waves. Man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops to the shore upon the watery plain. The wrecks are all thy deed. Nor doth remain a shadow of man's ravage, save his own. When for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into thy depth with bubbling groan, without a grave, unknelt, uncoffined, and unknown. Without a grave, unknelt, uncoffined, and unknown. Very beautiful poem by Byron. Again. O to your Nightingale by again Keats. Examples. Here where men sit and hear each other groan. Look at the rhythm there. Here, H-E-I-E, H-E-A-I, here, where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy sex a few, sad, lost grey hairs, where youth grows pale, settle thin, and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow. Away, away, for I'll fly to thee on the viewless wings of poesy. What a nightingale. Here, where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy sex a few, sad lost grey hairs where youth. It's about the nightingale. I fall upon the thorns of life. Again, that's another poem by Robert Frost on desert places. If you are a lover of nature, describing natural objects should be quite easy for you. Take, for instance, the poem Desert Places, the poem Desert Places by Robert Frost. Snow falling and night falling, fast, oh, fast. In a field I looked into going past, and the ground almost covered, smooth in snow, but a few weeds and stubble showing Last. Again, Robert Frost. The loneliness includes me unawares, and lonely as it is, that loneliness will be more lonely, yea, it will be less, a blanker whiteness of benighted snow with no expression, nothing to express. So these are also examples of nature poetry. And nature poetry includes in it quite a lot of similes, and it does symbolize permanence and tranquility. Okay, and the nature poetry, okay, is more appealing to our emotions. And nature poetry uses a different kind of diction. I'm sorry, it is not fiction, it should be diction. Elements of poetry, voice, and diction, and not fiction. I'm extremely sorry, please get it corrected. It is diction, not fiction. Diction. Okay. So, use of messenger, all those things you can read from a poem. And the very important thing next comes, what can be the themes in any poem? This area we should be. What is it that what will be the theme? What is it that you are going to write on? And having chosen poetry as your medium of expression, or poetry as the way of expression, what can you write on? What can you write on? What can I write on? A theme means it is something, an issue. 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 The central idea. The content, not thought content, the content. What is the subject of the poem? Theme means what is the subject of the poem. The title may be Ode to a Nightingale, but the subject or the theme of that poem may be something different. The title of the poem may be Lycidas, but the theme of the poem may be something different. A theme means central idea. What is the content trying to tell us? Is it about a personal issue? Or is it about a social issue? Or is it about public issue? Or is it about morals in life? Or it is talking about some philosophical ideas? Philosophical. The social and public, that's a very important point. What is the difference between a social theme and a public theme? Public theme, praise and rise, is a public. It's a public theme. War is a social theme. Entire society. Public can be a particular society, or a few or two or three particular societies. Social means it is universal theme. War is a universal theme. War. Love is a religion. Social theme. Public, praise and rise. Social themes, natural calamities. Public themes, very, very situational. Specific situation, specific society. The public theme in the African context may be different from the public theme in the Indian context. Examples are many. But the social theme can be universal. For example, discrimination. Discrimination of women. Racial discrimination. Discrimination of the subalterns. It's a social theme. So racial, gender, ecological one. For example, um, uh, greener environment, climatic changes. Climatic changes is social. As on today is, if I'm right, 4th October 2023. Climatic changes. The whole world is asking for a greener earth, social theme, and it is not a public theme. A public theme is a social theme in miniature, at a very, very micro level, belonging to a particular society. The African society need not be similar to the Indian society, or the Indian society need not be similar to some other society in the West or in the East. We know that. But within the East, public themes are there. In India, public themes in some states may be different from the social themes in India. Public theme is very, very particular, very, very specific, and social theme is something very general, which has such a society. The public is also a society. Let me make it very clear. The public is a subset of the main society. That's all. Price rise. For example, I'm just putting it. Rain harvesting. Public. Social. Yeah, as I was telling you. Discrimination. Ule Soyinka wrote his poem, Telephone Conversation. As students from Africa, you might have read. Okay. Telephone Conversation. Where he's talking about only the color discrimination. The color discrimination. Why I'm referring to that? Because you're all from the African environment, therefore you should be aware of that. Well, so themes can be sociological. Within the sociological theme, it can be something to do with, it's given there, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, or Homer's Iliad and Virgil's Aeneid, okay, have perennial social relevance. They appeal to the entire society. For example, if you consider the Holy Bible as an epic, yes, it doesn't belong to only, it's a social. It appeals to the society at large. So, theme has to be decided. Theme can be highly personal, and it becomes an autobiographical poem. I'm just writing something about my experience, my feeling, my suffering, my everything, my. Then it becomes highly autobiographical. And to write an autobiographical poem, I'll have to be very, very choosy about the words, about the structure, about the figures of speech, about the rhythm, etc., etc., etc. And what is it that am I going to describe my happiness when I'm alone? Or am I going to describe in my poetry the problems or the agonies that I faced during COVID 2020 or 2021, sorry, COVID 2021. COVID 2021 can be public, can be social as well. More at the social level and less at the public level. The public is also a part of society. Please listen to me. Please know the difference. Public theme is a part of social theme. But the social theme is highly, it encompasses a very large environment. There's public theme within that circle. A pocket, a helmet of the society. For example, rural versus urban. The rural versus the urban. lifestyles. Let me make it very clear. The rural versus the urban lifestyles. The rural is there all over. The urban is again there all over. And within the rural, it can be public when it comes to the rural environs of Africa, maybe different from, but the rural, the concept of rural may have some kind of similarities, some kind of commonalities. So, then it may be teaching. Your poem may be teaching something moral. For example, social theme. One more example I'll give about trees, protecting the environment, protecting the animals. Okay, environmental themes are social. Within that social theme, well, wildlife, wildlife. We tend to hunt on the wildlife. Is it right? You can just write a poem on hunting animals. Okay? With special reference to your own environs. So sociological themes or social themes can be a common theme. For example, politics. Politics. Politics in Africa, the ruling system, the ruling class in Africa, the ruling class. On the other hand, public themes are just like personal. Okay? It is not easy to write on public themes. Okay? But as your book says, W.B. Yeats, an Irish poet, a poet from Ireland, of course English poet only, he started writing. There's a poem prescribed in a book. What need you come to sense, but fumble in a greasy till, and add the half pence to the pence, and pray to shivering prayer until you have dried the marrow from the bones. For men were born to pray and save. Romantic Ireland is dead and gone. Romantic Ireland is dead and gone. It's with O'Leary in the grave. Yet they were of a different kind. The name that still your childish play, they have gone about the world like wind, but little time had they to pray. For whom the hangman's rope was spun, and what? God help us. Could they say? Romantic Ireland is dead and gone. It is with O'Leary in the grave. Okay? Public thing. Colonial days experiences in contrast with the post-colonial days. If you are going to write a poem on today's Africa, that may not be the same as the poem, those were poems, those were written during the pre-colonial days. Colonial days, not pre-colonial, colonial days, before Africa became free. South Africa got its independence. Now if you write, so earlier there were colonial times, because there are many colonies. Problems were the same, faced by all colonies by the imperialists. Now, after the colonial days, if you are going to write something about the post-colonial days, your post-colonial days may be totally different from your post-colonial experiences may be different from the post-colonial experiences elsewhere, as experienced by people of different societies under the globe. And that is public. Right? The background to the poem is the fact that each opinion and the people living loving landlord of the stature of the freedom fighters of war. Okay, some kind of comparison. Right. So, public poems are something which do including social themes, but social poems need not be understood as or need not be narrowed down to public issues. Social issues can be highly generic, but public issues are very, very particular and very specific. Okay, that's very important. So, great poets have been moved by social and political events. For example, freedom struggle. The social themes can be varied. As I told you, social themes can be on discrimination, injustice, oppression, revolution, but World War II, World War One, okay, struggle for freedom, etc., etc. Whereas public themes, okay, are something different. Well, the problem with poetry on public themes is that it may deteriorate into mere rhetoric if it lacks personal and emotional involvement. It may then become cliche-ridden or banal, means highly old. Okay. Poets have written on social themes, making them exciting and interesting by universalizing the topic, by finding a topical significance in the universal. That's all it is. Social themes have a universal appeal. Public themes need not have universal appeal. Public themes need not be universal. Public themes need not be general. Public themes maybe maybe narrowed down to a particular environment, a particular society, a particular group, or a particular region. Okay, not necessary. But even within that, I can draw some lines, I can draw some messages if it has relevance to the overall, the generic social issues. Okay. So, equality, for example, a poem like Equality, poem on equality, is on a social theme. Equality among human beings, equality among different societies, equality in specific societies, equality for man and women. Okay, that's social. In your example, all men are born equal. Nothing is more untrue. I hasn't agree with a tinge of hypocrisy, knowing full well I could beat many of them hands down. When runners up with random frown peacefully consent to retreat, I heave a sigh and fear my breath they might hear. Neither the law nor the life I belong can cure what is wrong. I feel stainless. I feel stainless steel bread. Look at the alliteration there. When my argument hoists me right, incidents of unequal sequences with some minor differences silently struggle and strive in alleys where I go for a drive. I pray heartily for their happiness, the sediment of a fiction, in a flirtation that never fails. Yet I can't shake off the suicidal longing. May cobwebs of this fiction break and man gain equality in its wake. So it's a social theme. There is no equality. Man is born free. Men are born free, but fettered in chains. There is no equality between man and women. There is no equality between the colored and the non-colored. There is no equality between the ruler and the ruled. There is no equality between or among the north, south, east, and west. Okay. So social theme can be on equality. Moral focus. So themes can be on just a lesson. Poems which are going to teach something about morals will be a lesson. Some of our scriptures, they are all poetic in form. Some of our old scriptures, they teach moral values. This one, that one, karma, non-karma. Even the Holy Quran is a poetry. The Holy Quran is poetry. It has the focus on teaching us moral values, telling us something about moral issues. But in the present day, on moral focus, there are code. Okay, many things you can write. Style, lifestyles, living relations, same-sex marriages. Okay, moral. Whether you are going to be accepted or not, we can write always. And philosophical poems are highly reflective in content, reflective in thought, reflective in structure, reflective in format. I would rather say epics are both philosophical, okay, and moral in focus. Great epics, whether it is epic, whether they are from the east or the west, all great epics have their focus on morals, moral issues, and they do focus on philosophy or philosophical truths which appeal to or which may be addressed to the mankind in general. Okay, there. Next one. So themes can be personal, themes can be social, themes can be public, themes may be on the moral issues, and themes may be on philosophical thoughts. Philosophical thoughts by William Shakespeare. Life is a tale told by an idiot. Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury. Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. See? And very important that Galileo, okay, Arab king was going through, walking. The king was walking. He saw a beggar, a poet. He meets his. Hello. When the king is walking along the road, you should not be sitting here. And the bodyguards of the king go and try to arrest that beggar. But the king stops his God. Please don't do this. He's my classmate. Okay. He goes there and asks, hello, you remember me? Yes. Who are you? Yes, you are my friend. Why are you here? You know, I am the king, I am standing here. Because you are the king, you are standing here. Because I am a beggar, I am sitting down. Right? And I am mumbling. Please look at outside. Wherever you see, it's all full of mud. The whole life is mud. The whole life is soil. There's no meaning. Don't fool us. You know that poem. So that's very important. Philosophical issues may be dealt with in a poem. Moral issues may be treated. Public issues can be discussed, and social issues can be elaborated, or social issues can be, again, not only elaborated, social issues can be found to have an answer. Again, please remember, writing about the social issue can be the authorial voice, or it can be the voice of many. Writing on public themes can be only the authorial voice, or can be Many. Again, moral focus. So, which kind of poetry? Maybe words are not going to teach you anything on morals. Words, ode to the west wind, ode to the skylark, ode on aggression, ode to autumn, ode to indolence. They have philosophical ideas in them, philosophical thoughts, highly philosophical. Most of the words have, particularly by Keats and Shelley, they have philosophical thoughts. Okay, not necessarily social. Nature poetry again, philosophical thoughts, not very many social issues or public issues. Okay. Next one, romantic themes. Themes can be romantic. Okay, what do you mean by romantic themes? Thinking like about love, thinking about human relations, right? That's it is given in your book, page number public themes I have given. Example, romantic themes. Okay, romantic themes can be set on page 33, 33, 34, 35. And what is romanticism? What do you mean by romantic? What do you consider as romantic? Okay, romantic. Every whatever is romantic, every romantic idea or every romantic theme will have the attributes like it's given there, a wonder. You'll be looking at as if it's something great, and mystery, some kind of a suffering. Subjectivity, again, highly subjective, personal. And romantic poetry, full of emotions, spontaneous, excessive emotion, excessive softness, ornamental diction. So, if you are going to write something about nature, it is going to be considered as you are writing about a romantic theme. If you are going to write something about your childhood experiences, then again it is a romantic theme. If you are going to write something about love, it can be considered as a poem with a romantic theme. If you are going to write something about memories of the past, then again the romantic poetry flows through solitude, through tranquility. Very important point. Romantic poetry is full of emotional experiences because romantic poetry invariably deals with the issues called love, childhood experience, experience of the past, highly personal. Okay, it's again nature. It deals with love, nature, childhood experiences, experiences of the past, and or I would rather say memories of the past, etc. And every romantic poetry, every romantic poem, when you call it poetry, every romantic poem will be highly subjective. That's what a solitary reaper has been appealing to. A solitary reaper's song has been appealing to a poet like Wordsworth. A nightingale has been appealing to the song of a nightingale, or the agility of the nightingale, or the musical tone of the nightingale, right? Has been appealing. And every romantic poet, particularly the romantic poet of Shelley, Keats, and Wordsworth, maybe a little later American poets like Robert Frost, there's some kind of a mystery. We really do not know. We really don't know what's happening. Why is that mystery? Some kind of wonder. Again, because to them, poetry is a combination of reason and imagination. And that's what constitutes romantic poetry. Generally, we speak poetry is best words and best order. Generally, we may say spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility. But when it comes to romantic poetry, when you are going to write a poem with a romantic theme or on a romantic theme or with a romantic, when you are going to write a poem on a romantic theme, I can also say with a romantic theme, with a romance is the theme. Okay? The word romance is totally different from romantic. Okay? And the the limitation of any romantic poem is that it need not be real. Imagination, as I said in the beginning, imagination can be unreal also. Imagination is something which we cannot be able to even see, maybe experience. But the sensory perceptions, romantic poetry may be appealing to the sensory perceptions, but they need not be real. Because of the words in that, because of the structure of romantic. Romantic themes will be included in romantic poems only, in romantic poetry only. And in romantic poetry, that it is more subjective, it is more just addressing or addressing the feelings and emotions. It's more about emotions. It need not be highly, what we call practical and highly real. So, I may simply say there's nothing like, for example, when you are describing beauty of Taj Mahal, he says it's the seventh wonder of the world. The Taj Mahal was built, particularly in India. I can give only an Indian example. Well, there are many examples elsewhere. Just like it. It lacks realism. Because I imagine. I imagine. Imagination can be primary and imagination can be secondary. Right? Primary imagination and secondary imagination. Later you will read what is primary imagination. If you are already having a postgraduate degree in or graduate degree in, if you have got graduated yourself in English literature, African literature, whatever is called in English, you will have learned something about Coleridge, British literature Coleridge, Irish, many such critics also, where they talk about imagination. Pure poetry and impure poetry. But coming to the romantic themes can be subjective. Romantic themes may create a sense of wonder. Romantic themes may be appealing more to emotions, not realistic. It may be spontaneous, right? And quite a lot of highly ornamented diction, highly sugar-coated words. Okay, so but same time, it lacks. That's a limitation of any romantic poetry, any romantic poem. It lacks realism. If you start writing about love, for example, even human love, well, we do describe our lover in words which may not be real at all, using words which may not be real at all, but it may be appealing to your emotions. It may be appealing to your what we call sensory perceptions, but need not be real. Okay? That's what I have written there. Romantic themes, they have several shades of meaning, but they do lack realism, and they cannot be restrained. Attributes of romantic poetry: sense of wonder, mystery, subjectivity, etc., etc., etc. Okay. And to write a romantic poem or to write a poem with a romantic theme, the situation itself will be different. You cannot write it any way. So that's all. And the personae in that romantic is something different. The next one. Okay, this I already said. A nature poem relates to human beings. It uses language that is simple in diction and other devices like simile, metaphor, taken from the world of nature. Right? This I'll deal tomorrow. Okay, that's all about this class. So we have seen what is poetry, what can be the possible themes in poetry, what are the different aspects of nature poetry. We have also discussed, uh, well, uh, not in person, what can be the public theme, what can be the social theme, what can be the philosophical theme, and which kind of moral issues. Moral issues. There are many poems given here. I would rather request you to go into it because all scriptures are poetry in form. All scriptures, all world religious scriptures, be it Islam, be it Christianity, be it Hinduism, be it Buddhism, be it Sikhism, whatever may be the religion, the word, religious scriptures are poetry by themselves. And they do focus on what you call moral issues. Very important point. Please don't remember. Moral and philosophical issues. Okay. And there are many good poems given in your. I'll read that poem because the way in which I'm not trying to say that I read it in a beautiful way, but the way in which you read a poem is going to help you understand the poem for its structure, for its language, not necessarily for its meaning, for its rhythm, for its appeal. This is my pledge to you, poetry. Oh, esteemed mother, all promises to make true, and great knowledge to gather. I hope to bring joy to you all through my poems fair, happiness, laughter to extol, the power of poetry, the power of poetry rare. I seek to lead my fellow men to the life of eternal joy. This is my pledge to you, poetry. Oh, esteemed mother, all promises to make true and great knowledge to gather. I hope to bring joy to all through my poems fair, happiness, laughter to extol, the power of poetry rare. I seek to lead my fellow men to the life of eternal joy with ideas written by this pen to stir them to live and enjoy. Oh, mother, give me the power to bring about that peace. Make the world a magic bower, and all enmity will cease. Let me lead like a light where all are free, where everything is a pleasant sight, where people say, not I, but we. Where people say, not I, but we. Give me courage to bring about or to bring out thoughts never dreamt of before. On goodness vanquish all doubts. To this and so much more, this will I give to you today to make my pen the key, showing everyone the way to life supreme in eternity. See how a very important poem. You should read that moral, sociological theme. So many people are trying to cheat themselves or doing something like that, and one takes an oath. This is the poem. This is a pledge I am taking through poetry. What is the pledge? Give me the power to bring about that peace. I want to make the world a magic bar, and all enmity is dissolved. All enmity will cease when such things happen. So it is more on a sociological theme, similarly moral themes, philosophical themes, everything. Then we started saying something about romantic. There are very good poems here Okay. And I don't know whether you will be able to understand because that's a very good poem by Sarojini Naidu given here, an Indian poet, okay, on the snake charmers. Snake charmers. Look at that. Read those lines. Whither dost thou hide from the magic of my flute? In what moonlight tangle the meshes of perfume? Where the clustering curas guard the squirrel's nest? Where the deep woods glimmer with jasmine bloom? I'll feed thee, O beloved, I'll I'll feed thee, O beloved, on milk and wild red honey. I'll bear thee in a basket of rushes, green and white. I'll bear thee in a basket of rushes, green and white, to a palace bower, where golden vested maidens thread with mellow laughter the petals of delight. Very important point here you should remember. Good poetry. Poetry begins with the delight and ends in wisdom. And that is good poetry. Poetry begins with delight, some kind of ecstasy, some kind of enjoyment, but ends in wisdom, knowledge. You're going to become wise by becoming poets. You're going to wise. The purpose of any poetry is to is not only to the purpose of any poet, any poem, any poetry, any piece of poem is not only to make you enjoy or not only to get you happiness or not only to just I mean go with the poet and then experience those emotions and things like that. Not only that, but every poem teaches you some kind of wisdom, gives you some good wisdom. You know what is wisdom? I don't have to define that. And romantic poems, sometimes. That's one problem with romantic. They are not realistic. All other kinds of poems, okay, they do have a moral issue, a philosophical issue, or a social issue, or a public issue. But all poems, invariably, even a romantic poem, may have some kind of a hidden wisdom, okay, hidden line to develop your wisdom, okay. Poetry begins with delight and ends in wisdom. Very important. The end of a poetry is to make you feel happy, make you get delighted, make you become knowledgeable because every poem, there cannot be a poem without an issue getting portrayed or without an issue getting discussed. The issue may be social or public or moral or philosophical or even psychological or sociological, right? This is what you have to understand. Now, I would give you, two lines from a poem. Are you able to listen to me? I don't know. I'm not able to hear. Hello? The hand comes. Structure in poetry tomorrow. Sir, I want to have interaction with you. Hello? Sir?
Hello.
Best words in best order. Sir, madam, Hello? Not over. I want to interact with them. I want to see the participants and talk to them. Okay.
I was here only because voice started this up. Sir, it's over, sir.
Sir, over, but I want to talk to them. I want to have some interaction.
Then we'll stop this presentation, na?
No, I don't know whether I'm going to listen to them.
No, better. Oh.
Abdullah,
Stop presentation. Right, sir?
Yeah.
Now we can stop this recording. No, better. Stop.